He told the world discipline built his empire, but behind closed doors, it was one unlocked car, and a set of hidden keys that exposed everything he tried to protect. Welcome back to Mr. Charles Stories, where silence has weight, betrayal has layers, and love doesn't always end with closure. If you believe dignity speaks louder than drama, then this story is for you. Roman Vale wasn't a man who made noise. He was the type of billionaire who never raised his voice, because he never had to. His presence said enough. His words were measured. His calendar airtight. His image pristine. By the age of 37, Roman controlled a tech security empire worth over $700 million. If your bank needed protection, if your airport required surveillance encryption, if your his school needed data privacy, odds were, Vale Systems had already designed the solution. Tech blogs praised him. Fortune covers worshipped him. Silicon Valley called him the cleanest hand in the dirtiest room. What most didn't know, and what Roman worked relentlessly to keep quiet, was that his wife, Elena Vale, had started seeing through that image long before the public ever would. They met in Boston when Roman was 28 and pitching a barely funded prototype to angel investors in rented shoes. Elena was an analyst working on her graduate thesis in behavioral security patterns. Their first conversation was an argument about the ethics of facial recognition AI. "I'm building systems that protect people," Roman had said. She replied, "No, you're building systems that predict them. That's not the same." He'd never forgotten that moment, not because she challenged him, but because she was calm when she did it. No ego, no performance, just facts. By their fourth date, he'd already stopped dating anyone else. They married 18 months later, not because of pressure, not because of a ring, but because Roman said, "I need someone who understands my silences." And Elena believed him. For the first few years, things moved fast, but close. They lived above a Thai restaurant, shared a second-hand MacBook, and slept with the windows open because they couldn't afford central air. When Roman's company won its first $1 million contract, they didn't celebrate with champagne. They stayed in and ordered the exact meal they had on their first date: curry for her, dry noodles for him. He said he never wanted them to change, but the moment they moved into the 4-story brownstone near Central Park, everything shifted. The home was perfect on paper: full staff, courtyard view, elevator, home office suite for Roman, soundproof library for Elena. But with each new floor, the space between them grew. It started with harmless changes. He started eating later, skipping weekend runs, falling asleep with a laptop still open. She noticed the gifts got more expensive, but the handwriting on the notes got shorter, less personal. Roman called it business mode. Elena called it the beginning of distance. Still, she didn't push. She believed in balance. She didn't expect fire every night, but she did expect warmth. On their 6th anniversary, Roman missed dinner. He said a client crisis forced a flight to DC. Elena believed him. The next morning, she found cufflinks on the guest room floor. Monogrammed, but not his. She didn't accuse him. She asked a quiet question over coffee. Was the meeting productive? He nodded, kissed her forehead, moved on. She didn't mention the cufflinks. She just started noticing patterns. Roman didn't flirt in public, didn't chase scandal. He avoided events unless absolutely necessary. He let his COO handle social media. If reporters wanted interviews, they had to go through 3 layers of scheduling. And even then, he rarely spoke for more than 15 minutes. But inside their home, Elena watched how often his phone buzzed, how often he looked guilty for reasons he didn't admit, and how quickly he changed topics when she mentioned family. He wasn't angry, he wasn't aggressive, he wasn't careless. He was distant and intentional about it. What held their marriage together during those years wasn't love, it wasn't intimacy, it wasn't even loyalty. It was rhythm, wake up, small talk, emails, coffee, silence, leave, return, glass of wine, sleep, repeat. There was no storm, no fight, no exposed affair. There was just nothing. And sometimes, nothing is the loudest warning of all. Elena wasn't dramatic. She didn't snoop, didn't scroll through his phone, didn't follow him. She observed. It was the discipline of being married to a man whose entire career was built on control. You learn to pay attention to the unspoken, not the shouted. Roman didn't lie outright. He simply avoided telling the whole story, like the way he no longer asked how her non-profit programs were going, or how he started preferring cold water with lemon instead of the chamomile tea they used to share before bed. Small changes, individually harmless, together undeniable. By the time their 8th anniversary passed with a calendar reminder and nothing more, Elena had stopped asking for anything. No cards, no dinners, no effort. He gave her money, privacy, a chauffeured car, security detail, a closet full of things she didn't wear. But none of it felt like a life anymore. It felt like a package, wrapped in silence. One morning, Roman came home from a tech conference in Miami. He dropped his travel bag in the hallway, kissed her cheek like always, and muttered something about needing to head to the office again. "I forgot a file," he said. "One more quick stop." She nodded, said nothing. She wasn't expecting anything, not an explanation, not a gift. But as she went into the garage later that afternoon to pick up her dry cleaning, she noticed something strange. The door to a luxury coupe at the far end was open. That car wasn't one of their usuals. It wasn't listed under the household insurance. She knew. She checked those records herself. Curious, she approached it. Roman kept every vehicle spotless, lined, organized, minimal. This one felt different. Inside, it smelled like gardenia. Soft, feminine, foreign. Not a scent she wore. Not a scent she recognized. She sat in the driver's seat, looked around. The center console was closed, but not locked. She opened it. Tucked beneath a valet stub was a velvet pouch. Inside the pouch, a thin ring of brass keys, one of them labeled Unit 9 degrees Celsius. Her breath hitched, not from panic, but from confirmation. She opened the glove compartment next. A folded valet ticket, East 82nd Street. No name. No license plate written on it. She stared at it. No confrontation, no panic. She simply took a photo, put everything back, closed the door, walked out. That night, she didn't mention it. Roman came home after 11 p.m., kissed her cheek again, and said something about back-to-back meetings tomorrow. She nodded, poured herself tea, slept with her back turned to his side of the bed. The next morning, she ordered a private ride to East 82nd. The building matched the ticket, high-end, understated, the type of property where doors opened without introductions, as long as you had the right keys. She walked in confidently, used the valet ticket. No one stopped her. The elevator recognized the key fob. She pressed 9. The hallway was quiet, sterile, one of those polished New York designs that screamed exclusivity without needing branding. She stood outside Unit 9C for a full minute. Then she slid the key in. It clicked. The apartment smelled like eucalyptus and warm vanilla. Slippers by the door. Coat on a chair. Soft jazz playing from the speakers. A throw blanket draped across a cloud grey couch. This wasn't a crash pad. This was lived in. She stepped deeper. 2 wine glasses on the side table. One had lipstick smudged along the rim. On the kitchen island sat something ordinary, a ceramic mug, plain white, but she recognized it instantly. It was a limited edition mug from her alma mater, only sold during her graduating year. She had 2 of them. She kept one, donated the second during a household decluttering 2 winters ago. She didn't need to ask where the second mug ended up. It was here, on this counter, in this apartment, owned or rented by this man, her husband. Then came the final cut. On the fridge, she saw a photo. Roman, dressed in a hoodie, holding a small toddler, laughing. The little girl had his eyes, wide set, serious. And the woman beside him? Barefoot, no makeup, long dark hair, wearing the exact hoodie Elena had dropped in the donation box beside that mug. Her voice didn't shake. Her hands didn't tremble. She didn't cry. She just looked around one last time, nodded to herself, and walked out. She got home before him, set a small envelope on the coffee table, sat by the fireplace, waited. If you found something you weren't meant to see, would you confront it? Or would you wait? Let us know in the comments. If this story already has your heart beating, don't forget to like and subscribe to Mr. Charles Stories. Every week, we bring you stories where dignity, truth, and real consequences matter. Roman came home later than usual. It was past 10:30 when the black SUV eased into the driveway and the security system chirped softly as he walked through the door. He looked tired, but not guilty. Distracted, but not disturbed. That was always the danger with Roman. His guilt wore clean suits and calm hands. The apartment keys were still in her coat pocket. The photograph still burned into her memory. The wine glass, the mug, the child. All of it sat in her mind with disturbing clarity. And Roman, he moved as though everything was normal. He hung his coat, loosened his tie, walked toward the kitchen. That's when he saw it. The small envelope on the coffee table. He slowed, picked it up. There was no name, no note, just a printed photo. The one from the fridge in Unit 9C. Elena stepped into the room a second later. Her face was unreadable, calm, but her silence no longer meant peace. Roman didn't speak immediately. He stared at the photo, fingers tightening around it just slightly. "I was going to tell you," he said quietly. She didn't move. When? Her voice didn't rise. Before or after the next baby? He looked down. "Elena," he paused, then tried again. "It wasn't what I planned." "No," she nodded. "You planned to hide it." He opened his mouth, closed it again. There was nothing to say that could make it better. She waited a beat. Then, how long? Roman's throat worked. Almost 2 years. Her eyes didn't blink. "That child looks older than that." He nodded slowly. "She's 3. Elena let the truth settle. 3 years. That meant during one of the biggest contract years in Vale Systems history. During their marriage, he had made room for another woman, another home, and a child, and never once mentioned it. "I never meant for it to be a double life," he said. "Then, what was it?" she asked. "A delayed confession?" Roman stepped closer. "You know me. I'm not reckless." She tilted her head. "You're not emotional either, but that child has your eyes." Silence. "I didn't want to lose you," he said again. "You were the one thing that made sense in my life. You were the only person who knew the version of me before all this became heavy." Elena inhaled. "And still, you gave more of yourself to a stranger than to your wife." He flinched. She stepped back. "I'm not going to scream," she said. "I'm not going to fight. I'm just done." Roman reached for her hand, but she pulled back gently. "Don't worry," she added. "I won't drag your name." He looked up. "I built everything with you," she continued, "but I won't destroy it. That's on you." She left the next morning. No suitcase, no headlines, no tears. Just a woman in a black coat, sliding the keys to their home across the marble counter and walking out into the morning frost. Roman stood in the window, watching her go. And for the first time in years, he felt something he couldn't package, control, or correct. Loss. 3 days later, news outlets started circling. A financial blog leaked rumors of suspicious family-based payments made from a Vale Systems shell company. A week later, one of his old assistants came forward with footage, grainy but clear, of Roman walking into Unit 9C with a child in his arms. His legal team jumped into action. Personal matter, they called it. Misinterpreted arrangement, one lawyer suggested. But the story had already escaped containment. Board members panicked. One key contract pulled out of negotiations. Roman was asked to temporarily step back from external representation. Within a month, his COO resigned. 2 board seats gone. and whispers started in places Roman never thought vulnerable. Elena didn't say a word. She received emails from reporters, private investigators, documentary producers. She deleted them all. She moved to a smaller city, quiet, less surveillance, rented a two-bedroom home with simple furniture and natural light. She started volunteering again, this time full-time, helping underfunded high schools teach digital security and ethical coding. People asked her why she wasn't doing more with her name. She would smile gently and say, "The loudest thing I ever did was leave." Roman sent one letter, handwritten, no envelope branding, no pressure, no request. "I built a fortress and kept you outside. That's my greatest failure. You were the only person who didn't want anything from me, and I gave you less than I gave everyone else. I don't expect you to reply. I just need you to know. I see it now." She folded the letter once and filed it away in a drawer she no longer opened. 3 months passed. Roman Vale, the man once known for having the cleanest name in tech, had disappeared from headlines, but not from memory. His company still stood, his team still worked, his board still met, but the confidence behind his name, it was gone. His firm's valuation dropped 17% in a single quarter. 2 major clients walked away for optics. A whispered scandal wasn't a death sentence, but in the world Roman ruled, it was a permanent limp. He stopped attending public events, stopped giving lectures, started spending more time inside his office than in boardrooms. His PR advisors warned him, "Do damage control now, or the story becomes the only truth." But Roman didn't respond to pressure the way most did. He wasn't trying to save his image. He was trying to survive what he'd lost. Elena, on the other hand, was not rebuilding. She was recentering. She'd seen powerful men fall before. But what haunted her wasn't his collapse. It was the realization that she had ignored her own unraveling for so long. She never thought she'd be one of those women who slipped into someone else's background while standing next to him in every photo. But the truth was, she had stopped being seen a long time ago. Not because Roman didn't value her, but because he valued the illusion of her more than the woman herself. She took a contract with a local community college to build out a data literacy curriculum for young women in underfunded districts. It paid little, but it gave her purpose. In the classroom, she taught about encryption, identity protection, how companies use behavioral data against users. But she never once mentioned Roman's name. Because her new life wasn't built on the ruins of her old one, it was built beside them. Meanwhile, in New York, Roman returned to the apartment at East 82nd for the first time in weeks. The woman, Shay, greeted him at the door with their daughter in her arms. Her tone was polite, controlled, like she knew the clock was ticking on whatever arrangement they'd had. She didn't ask where he'd been. She didn't ask why he hadn't returned her messages. She simply handed him the child. He sat on the floor, placed the little girl on his lap, and watched her play with blocks that spelled out numbers. He smiled, but there was no peace in it, because this wasn't what he wanted. Not fully, not honestly. He had broken something that could never be rebuilt, not in either home. 2 months later, Roman received a letter from the foundation handling Elena's non-profit program. Not from her. From the administrative office. They had decided to rename one of their mentorship cohorts in honor of women who choose peace over performance. The cohort's name? The Walkaway. He stared at the letter for a long time, didn't smile, didn't cry, just sat in the stillness of a life that no longer included her. Roman never remarried. He continued to parent quietly. From a distance, Shay eventually moved back to California and he sent support. Visited once a month, but the warmth was never the same. Not because she asked for too much, but because he had given everything to the wrong place and now had nothing left that wasn't shadowed by guilt. As for Elena, she thrived. She didn't launch a book deal. She didn't monetize the heartbreak. She didn't release a tell-all. She kept showing up to classrooms with mismatched chairs and out-of-date computers and taught kids how to write secure code. Sometimes, a former board member's wife would recognize her and ask what happened. She would say, "I stopped waiting for someone to come home." Roman sat alone in his office, the same room where he once negotiated billion-dollar deals and signed off on major security contracts. Now, the silence in that room wasn't power, it was punishment. Emails kept coming. Analysts still filed reports. Assistants still asked for direction. But the air had changed. He'd noticed it when a junior executive called him "Sir" without eye contact. When his CFO started quoting board votes more than he quoted strategy. When one of the most trusted engineers asked for a transfer with no reason given. Power didn't disappear all at once. It leaked slowly, like water through a crack in marble. He'd always been calculated, not cruel. He didn't set out to build a double life. He set out to escape the noise, and somehow, in doing that, he'd become the very chaos he tried to avoid. The apartment on East 82nd was supposed to be a quiet retreat, a controlled space, no media, no optics, no pressure. But people aren't software, and consequences aren't bugs you patch later. Back when he and Elena first moved into their brownstone, Roman still handled most of the business directly. Meetings, product development, hiring, all of it. He was never home, but when he was, he brought ideas, excitement, the fire of someone still chasing the dream. But that changed after the acquisition. Suddenly, he wasn't a builder, he was an overseer, a symbol. That's when his silence stopped being purposeful and became dismissive. And Elena? She noticed. She always noticed. She never interrupted, never nagged, never accused. But she asked less, spoke less, loved him less out loud. He remembered a night 2 years before the scandal. He'd come home late, very late, past midnight. She was sitting in the kitchen, reading by lamplight, her tea untouched. Couldn't sleep, he asked. She looked up slowly and said, "Did you eat?" He lied and said yes. She knew. He knew she knew. But she said nothing, just poured the tea down the sink and went to bed. That moment, Roman would later realize, was when she stopped believing in their marriage as something sacred. It had become something to maintain, not something to nurture. It was also the year he met Shay. She was a consultant, hired for a 3-month digital migration project. Brilliant, sharp, confident in ways that didn't challenge him, just complemented his systems. She didn't care about press, didn't want his last name, didn't even ask about Elena. And that, in hindsight, was the red flag he ignored. Roman told himself it was harmless. She was a quiet connection in a loud world. She cooked, occasionally. They talked about books. She asked nothing of him, and that felt like peace. But it wasn't peace. It was negligence wrapped in convenience. The child came 9 months after Shay ended the contract. Roman didn't panic. He paid for everything. Set up a trust. Created a side company to handle expenses. Kept it off the grid. Shay didn't demand a relationship. She wasn't interested in labels. Still, he visited. Still, he played with the child. Still, he kept everything silent. When he held his daughter for the first time, he thought he'd feel conflict. He didn't. He felt nothing. And that scared him more than guilt ever could. Elena never knew. She had suspicions, of course. She noticed the new accounts, the late meetings, the sudden stress, but she never saw Roman break a rule until she found the keys. Roman stared at his reflection in the window, backlit by the city skyline. He looked the same. Pressed suit, silver cufflinks, crisp collar. But the man inside that reflection had become a stranger, not because of what he did, but because of what he ignored. For years, he sat back in his chair, opened a new document, and typed the word control. Then he deleted it, because for the first time, he understood what he'd never controlled to begin with. Respect, trust, love. They can't be installed. They can only be earned, and he'd stopped earning them long ago. Roman didn't realize how many corners he had cut emotionally, until silence became his only echo. He used to think providing for someone was the same as loving them. That giving comfort, protection, luxury, that was the proof. That was what husbands did. But love isn't an asset. It can't be secured by a title or protected by a contract. Elena never asked for more than his presence, but he gave her gifts instead of his time. Gave her respect in public, but not intimacy in private. Praised her loyalty, but never made her feel chosen. And in doing so, he taught her to live alone while still being married. That was the part that haunted him. He didn't lose her overnight. He trained her to leave. He went to the brownstone once after she left. The house manager had kept everything in order. The place looked untouched, but it felt different, colder. There was no music in the living room, no open books, no soft scent of her favorite soaps. Her office was empty, just a few post-its left on the wall, and a coffee cup he'd bought her during their second trip to Chicago. The one that read, "Never settle for surface level." That mug hit him harder than anything, because it wasn't just a souvenir, it was a warning she had lived by, and one he had ignored. He walked into their bedroom. The bed was made, but her side still looked lived in, like she'd left quickly but deliberately. The only thing she left behind was a framed picture on the nightstand. It was from their 4th year together. They were on a rooftop, laughing, arms wrapped tightly. No makeup, no filters. Just two people caught in a moment before life turned complex. He sat on the edge of the bed and stared at that photo for a long time, not because of nostalgia, but because he didn't recognize the man in the picture anymore. Roman hadn't cried since his father died. Even then, it was quiet. One tear, maybe two, then back to work. But this time, it was different. It wasn't loud. It wasn't a breakdown. It was grief, pure, raw, and private. He didn't cry for the scandal, not for his reputation, not even for the child he barely saw. He cried for the version of himself that forgot how to care properly, and for the woman who had once trusted him to be more than successful. Afterward, he opened the wardrobe. Half the clothes were gone, the drawers half empty, but in the back corner, he saw a box labeled "Things to Keep." He opened it. Inside were old anniversary cards, little notes he'd written on napkins, random thoughts, inside jokes, receipts from their first apartment. One note stopped him cold. It was in her handwriting. "I miss the version of us that didn't require scheduling. No date, no context, just the sentence. That was enough." That night, Roman didn't return to the East 82nd apartment. He didn't call Shay. Didn't send a message. He knew the damage was done, to everyone, but the one thing he could do now, the only thing he had left, was look at himself honestly. And for Roman Vale, that was the first time in a long time that honesty came without a motive. In the weeks that followed, Roman started arriving at the office early, not for meetings, but to listen. He sat in on team discussions. He met with middle managers, asked engineers how they were doing, not to fix anything, just to hear them. Some didn't trust the change. Others cautiously opened up. He didn't try to explain his past. He simply showed up with less control and more curiosity. It wasn't a redemption arc. He wasn't after sympathy. He was trying to live differently. And while most of the world still saw him as the man who got caught living two lives, Roman no longer cared about that. He cared about not becoming that man again. Across the country, Elena's life moved with quiet precision. She taught 4 days a week at a high school near the outskirts of town. Fridays, she ran a local tech mentorship program at a public library. Her phone was always off during class. Her emails went unanswered until after dinner. She watered her own plants, cooked her own food, walked to the bakery every Saturday morning. There were no security guards, no gated estates, no luxury vehicles, and yet she was finally at peace. Not because she hated what she left behind, but because she no longer needed it to feel safe. Her students often asked where she used to work. Some had Googled her, seen old press clippings, conference videos, gala appearances, but she never explained. Instead, she told them, "Power without values collapses, so don't just chase success, chase what keeps you honest." and then she'd go back to teaching them how to protect their passwords. Because not every lesson needs to come with a full backstory. That fall, Elena received a package with no return address. Inside, a flash drive. Encrypted, she plugged it in. A single folder, titled, "You Were Right." It wasn't dramatic. No long letter. No video. Just 10 files. 10 moments from their marriage. Photos he had saved. Recordings of music she used to play. Notes from their shared app. A single audio message. "I thought control meant safety, but you were the only part of my life I didn't have to manage, and I treated that like a liability. I'm sorry." She listened once, then deleted the file. Some memories deserve peace more than permanence. And for the first time in a long time, she didn't feel sadness after closing something from him. She felt light. Because closure isn't what you get from them, it's what you stop needing from them. The apartment at East 82nd remained untouched. Shay hadn't called, hadn't messaged. Roman hadn't gone back either. Not because he was angry, but because the space had become too quiet, and not the comforting kind. It reminded him of a life built on pause. Everything in that apartment felt like an echo. Every chair, every glass, every photo framed to look effortless, like someone had tried too hard to mimic real life. That's the part that stung. He had created a home that looked like comfort, while dismantling the one that was. Shay had warned him once. "This place is too still," she said, months before the scandal. "You think stillness is peace, but it's not. Sometimes it's just avoidance with better furniture." He remembered nodding, distracted, brushing her comment off. She never brought it up again. Now, it sat in his head like a warning, unheeded. Meanwhile, Elena had learned how to breathe in rooms that didn't carry the weight of his silence. She taught in classrooms with flickering lights and slow Wi-Fi. None of her students knew her past, and she never offered it. They respected her because she was present, because she listened, because she made every question feel like it mattered. One student, a 15-year-old girl named Renee, stayed behind one afternoon after class. She was quiet, brilliant, and curious in a way that Elena recognized. "Can I ask you something not about coding?" "Of course." Renee hesitated. "How do you know when someone doesn't deserve a second chance?" Elena paused. The weight of the question wasn't missed. "Usually," she said carefully, "you don't know until you've already given them one." Renee frowned. "So, we're supposed to keep forgiving?" "No," Elena said, "but we are supposed to learn, whether they change or not." Renee nodded slowly. She didn't ask for more. She didn't need to. Elena walked home that evening thinking about the woman she used to be, the one who kept excusing patterns because she thought commitment meant endurance. But loyalty without boundaries wasn't noble. It was quiet self-abandonment, and that realization didn't come all at once. It came in moments, like picking up dry cleaning Roman never wore, or learning the names of his assistants while he forgot her favorite author, or watching him become more polite in public while growing more absent in private. He never hit her, never yelled, never lied in cruel ways, but he disappeared in small doses, and eventually all the pieces that made her feel seen were gone. Roman wasn't reckless. That's what made it worse. He didn't spiral. He didn't collapse. He just shifted, gradually, away from her, into the spaces where she wasn't invited. He spent hours that week reviewing old files, not business documents, personal photos, notes, calendars. A shared grocery list from 6 years ago made him pause. He scrolled through it. Ginger tea clementines, black bean, chips or moisturizer, your granola, the one in the orange bag. She had written that note under his list. It was such a small thing, but it reminded him that she always remembered his preferences, even after long days, even when he forgot hers. He clicked on an old audio file. It was a voice memo, one she sent when he was in San Diego for a conference. "Hey, I'm looking at the moon and wondering if it looks different over there. I don't need a call back, just wanted to say I miss you. That's all." He never replied to that message, not because he didn't care, but because he was in a meeting when it came in, and by the time he remembered, too much time had passed. It hadn't felt urgent. Now it did. At Vale Systems, the leadership team continued without him. His interim replacement had been named. Publicly, it was temporary. Privately, Roman knew the board wasn't expecting him back anytime soon. They still called occasionally, for optics, for advice. But his seat at the head table had grown cold. He wasn't angry about it. Just stillness again. But this time, it wasn't hiding anything. That weekend, Roman drafted a letter to Elena, not handwritten, not emailed, just typed, honestly. He didn't ask for forgiveness. He didn't try to explain everything. He wrote it the way she used to speak, measured, reflective, respectful. He saved it to a drive and encrypted it. Then he had it delivered, not from his address, but anonymously. No pressure to respond, no demand for recognition. Just a file named, "You were always right about silence." He didn't expect her to open it, but he hoped she would know, even if just for a moment, that he'd finally heard what she was trying to say all along. Roman had always measured his life in productivity. Meetings hit, deadlines met, deals closed. That's what made him successful. But for the first time in years, he was forced to sit still without metrics to track or problems to solve. And in that stillness, things became clearer. The downfall hadn't started when Elena found the keys. It had begun the moment he stopped seeing her as a partner and started treating her like a pillar he could lean on without ever asking if she had the strength to keep holding him up. He hadn't cheated because he lacked love. He strayed because he didn't know how to be present when love required emotional honesty. What he called control was really avoidance, and what he called protection was really just secrecy. Elena, on the other hand, was busy rebuilding trust, not in others, but in herself. For months after leaving Roman, she wrestled with guilt that didn't belong to her. Not because she still loved him, but because she had stayed long after she stopped feeling like herself. She had ignored instincts, made excuses for distance, told herself that loyalty was the most loving act she could give. But love isn't loyalty to someone else's comfort. It's alignment with truth, even when it hurts. At the end of one mentorship session, a student named Joy raised her hand and asked, "What do you do when someone tells you they'll change, but they've said it before?" The room quieted. Elena took a deep breath. "Change is a mirror, not a promise," she said. "If you can't see it in how they show up, it's not real." Joy nodded slowly. "What if you still love them? Then love them, but from a safe distance." She didn't elaborate. She didn't need to. One rainy afternoon, Elena visited the city for a conference on ethical AI, her first major public event since the story broke months earlier. She didn't attend as a speaker. She sat in the back, listened, took notes, but whispers followed her. Two industry executives noticed her in the corridor and stopped talking. She heard one say, "That's her, right?" The other nodded. "Yep." The wife, she kept walking, not because it hurt, but because she was no longer interested in defending a past she didn't create. She had already done the hardest thing. She left without destroying anyone. Roman watched the same conference online. He saw her in a wide shot of the audience, sitting quietly, head slightly tilted like she used to when listening intently. He paused the video, zoomed in, not for nostalgia, for recognition, and what he saw startled him. She looked stronger, calmer, lighter, and he knew why. Because the life she was building now didn't require her to shrink to keep someone else's reputation intact. Later that week, Roman received a call from his assistant, who mentioned that one of the board members had spotted Elena at the AI conference. "She looked good," the assistant said casually. Roman didn't answer. He didn't know what to say. At night, Roman sometimes walked the long hallways of his estate, alone. He would glance at the old bookshelf Elena once curated, still full of titles he never opened. He used to think she was soft, fragile, too forgiving. Now he understood. Forgiveness was her form of strength. But walking away without bitterness, that was her power. The numbers were recovering slowly. Investor confidence was returning. But public trust, that would take longer. And personal trust, that was gone. And some things, once broken, should never be rebuilt. Not because of pride, but because the cost of reconstruction would destroy what little remained. He sat back in his chair and opened a journal, something Elena used to encourage him to do, but he'd always brushed off as unnecessary. Now, he opened to a blank page and wrote, "The smartest decision I ever made was marrying her. The second smartest would have been listening. I did the first. I failed. The second." He closed the journal. No one would read it. That wasn't the point. In another city, Elena planted herbs on her kitchen windowsill. Mint, basil, rosemary. The smell filled the apartment, reminded her of her mother's hands and her grandmother's Sunday soups. Simple things, real things, things that didn't lie, the way a home should feel. Not staged, not polished, just honest. And for the first time in years, she felt full. Not from a relationship, not from a title, but from knowing that nothing about her healing required someone else's apology to begin. Elena received a letter in the mail. No return address, clean envelope, no handwriting. Inside was a formal request. Veil Systems had launched a Women in Tech mentorship program under their new interim leadership. The team wanted to honor key figures in tech education by inviting them to review the curriculum. Her name had been added by a former junior engineer who now worked under the initiative. There was no mention of Roman, no branding, no PR play, just a short, typed note inviting her to consult if she wanted to. She stared at it for a while, not because she was unsure of what to do, but because she realized it didn't trigger anything. Not fear, not sadness, not regret, only clarity. She declined. Politely, firmly. She didn't need to be part of a rebrand. She was already living the truth that company claimed to be reaching for. That week she was invited to speak at a local summit, not about tech, but about decision-making under emotional pressure. The panel included a retired judge, a child therapist, and a conflict negotiator. Elena didn't wear black, didn't dress to hide. She wore the same soft blue sweater she taught in every Tuesday, the one with the thread loose at the sleeve. Her presence wasn't polished. It was real. The moderator asked her, "What's the hardest decision you've ever made?" She didn't hesitate. Leaving quietly, a pause. Why quietly? Because sometimes the loudest thing you can do is walk away without needing anyone to clap for you. The audience sat still, not out of confusion, but because most of them understood exactly what that felt like. Roman watched that clip online 2 days later. It had gone semi-viral, not headline viral, but enough to hit business feeds and academic circles. He watched her say the words, saw the softness in her face, the steel beneath it, and again, he didn't feel anger. He didn't even feel shame anymore. Just respect, a respect he hadn't given her enough of when it counted. Roman's therapist, a quiet older man with little tolerance for deflection, asked him something during their 5th session. "What's the hardest part for you right now?" Roman thought for a long moment, then said that she became stronger after I broke what we had. The therapist didn't respond right away, then simply said, "Isn't that what strength does? It grows in the cracks." Back in her apartment, Elena spent her evenings sorting donated laptops for her students. Many were old, slow, but she knew how to restore them, how to make them usable. That was something Roman always overlooked about her. She never wasted what others threw away. She had salvaged joy from broken places more than once in her life. And this was no different. She called her mother that night. They talked about everything except Roman. That was how it had always been. Her mother never asked for details, never judged her choices, just said one thing months ago after the news broke. "I'm glad you remembered who you were." That was all. It was enough. Roman stopped keeping tabs after that interview, not out of bitterness, but because he finally understood. Watching her thrive wasn't about what he'd lost. It was about accepting that she was never his to keep. She had loved him, chosen him, given him more chances than he deserved, but she was never his to own. The woman stage, in that soft blue sweater, had become someone she never could have become beside him. And now, she didn't owe anyone proof of that growth. She was the proof. The following week, Elena received a letter. Not a message, not an email, a real letter. This time, it was handwritten. The return address was unfamiliar, but the handwriting was not. It was Roman's. She didn't open it right away. She set it on the small table near her kitchen window, beside the rosemary pot and her water glass. She went about her evening routine, watered the plants, reviewed her students' assignments, folded her laundry. The letter stayed unopened. She had no fear of what was inside, no curiosity either, only patience. She had learned that healing doesn't demand answers, it demands consistency. When she finally opened it that night, the note was short. Elena, this isn't a request. It isn't a confession. I only want to say thank you for never becoming bitter. I know you had every reason. I'll never ask for more. Roman. There was no postscript, no apology, and yet, for the first time, he didn't write to fix something. He wrote to face it. She folded the letter, tucked it into a drawer, and exhaled. It didn't change anything, but it didn't have to. That weekend, she gave a guest lecture at a local university. The class was called Digital Responsibility and the Ethics of Access. Afterward, a group of students approached her. One of them, a young woman with a quiet voice and sharp questions, lingered after the others left. She said, "Do you ever regret trusting people who didn't protect you?" Elena smiled softly. "No, I only regret not trusting myself sooner." The student looked down. "I think I'm going through something like that." "You're not alone," Elena said. "But don't wait for it to break before you walk. Leaving while you're whole is still leaving." The girl nodded, her eyes misting. "Thank you. Be safe," Elena said. "And be clear. That's how you protect your peace." Meanwhile, Roman sat in a small consulting room in Midtown. He'd agreed to mentor a few young founders through a post-accelerator program. No cameras, no public listings, just real conversations. One afternoon, a young man named Malik asked him, "How do you protect your personal life when the business is growing too fast?" Roman paused, looked up, then said, "You don't. Not if you wait too long." Malik frowned. "What do you mean?" Roman set his pen down. "You either protect it early," he said, "or you lose the right to complain when it collapses." There was silence. Then Malik nodded. "You learned that the hard way, huh?" Roman gave a small smile. "The only way." Later that night, Roman returned to the East 82nd apartment. He hadn't been back in weeks. Shay had left months ago, quietly, without demands or drama. The lease would expire soon. The apartment was bare, no laughter, no music, just the echo of a life no longer occupied. He walked through the rooms, stopped in front of the fridge. The photo was gone. So was everything else. He sat on the floor against the wall, and for once didn't fill the space with noise, not music, not excuses, not thoughts. Just sat with himself, fully, honestly. Finally, the next day, he made a decision. He drafted a transfer of funds, a sizable donation to Elena's non-profit, routed through a neutral grant program. No publicity, no naming rights, no acknowledgement. He didn't even send a message, just left the note field blank. Because sometimes doing the right thing isn't about being seen. It's about being responsible for what your silence once stole. Back in her city, Elena was having dinner with her friend Celine, a literature professor with a gift for blunt honesty. Over dessert, Celine asked, "Do you think he's changed?" Elena thought for a moment. "I don't know," she answered. "I don't need to know." Celine raised an eyebrow. "No curiosity?" Elena shook her head. "Healing isn't a group project. If he's changing, good. If not, that's not my homework." Celine smiled. "You're different. A year ago, you would have waited for a sign. I don't wait anymore," Elena said. "I live." She meant it, because now her days had rhythm again, not in survival, but in joy. Mornings with coffee and journaling, afternoons in classrooms sharing knowledge, evenings filled with walks, calls to her mother, and slow cooking. No alarms, no guessing, no adjusting herself for someone else's shadow. She lived in her own light now, and it was enough. Roman stood in front of a group of young founders weeks later. One of them asked, "What's one thing you'd do differently if you could go back?" He didn't hesitate. "I would answer the phone when love called quietly," he said, "because it never calls twice the same way." The room fell still. No one asked what he meant. They didn't need to. Roman no longer chased redemption. He wasn't trying to rebuild what had fallen apart. He was simply learning how not to break what remained. His daughter visited once a month. She liked puzzles and blueberries and asking too many questions. He answered each one, even the silly ones, because he'd missed too many answers the first time around. Back at her apartment, Elena lit a candle and opened a new book, one she hadn't been able to finish back when her life felt like it was on pause. Now, there was time, not because everything was perfect, but because she had chosen peace over performance, and she wasn't turning back. There would be no dramatic reunion, no public apologies, no final confrontation, just two lives once entangled, now walking separately in clarity. And that was its own kind of ending, one built not on bitterness, but on respect, quiet, clean, and earned. Have you ever had to walk away without closure and still chose peace over proving a point? Tell us in the comments how you found clarity after silence. And if stories like this help you reflect, remember to like, share, and subscribe to Mr. Charles Stories, where healing doesn't need to be loud to be powerful. Roman walked into the Manhattan branch of an old law firm tucked between two glossy tech buildings. He had an appointment, not to launch a new company, not to negotiate a merger, but to revise his will. His attorney, a woman named Eloise who'd worked with him for over a decade, greeted him in the private conference room. "You look rested," she said. "I'm not," Roman replied honestly, "but I'm clear." She nodded, opened a file and waited. They spent the next hour reviewing trusts, beneficiaries, and confidential directives. When they reached the section titled Legacy Contributions, Roman paused. "This part," he said, "I want to make changes." Eloise looked up. "To which beneficiary?" "To all of it," he said, "but particularly the non-profit." "You mean Vale Foundation?" He shook his head. "No, the other one. Elena's." She studied his expression. "Will she know it's from you?" "I don't want her to." Eloise didn't press further. She simply wrote, "Anonymous legacy contribution," and kept going. Roman signed without hesitation. Back in her city, Elena sat in the library reviewing applications for her newest program, Secure Futures, an intensive scholarship for girls entering cybersecurity boot camps. She held a folder in her hand, bright green, decorated with careful handwriting and stickers of sunflowers. The applicant, age 16, wrote in bold ink, "I want to protect people who look like me so they can feel safe online and off." Elena closed her eyes for a moment. Her throat tightened. This was the kind of work that felt heavier than numbers, deeper than budgets. It was restoration in young lives and in her own. Roman no longer lived in the penthouse they once shared. He sold it quietly and moved into a smaller, modern home upstate. No full-time staff, no smart system controls, just a house with real windows and the sound of birds in the morning. The neighbors didn't know him. He preferred it that way. He shopped at the market himself, cooked simple food, paid in cash when possible, not because he was hiding, but because he no longer needed the performance of power. One evening, while walking past the local bookstore, he saw a sign, Thursday, reading, "Local tech leaders on ethical design." He stepped closer. Elena's name wasn't on the flyer, but he recognized the logo of her non-profit at the bottom. He didn't go in. He stood outside for 5 minutes, then turned around, because he wasn't the story. And this time, he knew better than to enter where trust hadn't invited him. At the event, Elena sat quietly as her colleague, Amelia, shared the latest community data on tech outreach. When Amelia mentioned their upcoming public-private initiative to expand digital safety in underserved schools, the room applauded. A few guests looked at Elena, smiling. She smiled back, but she wasn't performing. This wasn't about praise. It was about repair. She didn't build her new life to prove anything to Roman. She built it because she needed a life that no longer required her to explain why she stayed so long, or why she finally left. Roman wrote a message that night. He didn't send it. I saw the flyer. I didn't go in. But I saw the impact. That's more than I deserve, but exactly what I hoped. He saved it to a folder titled Letters That Can Wait. Because not everything needs to be said. Some things are meant only to be known. Elena walked home under a soft drizzle that night. No umbrella, no rush, just her, and the sound of her boots against the pavement. She stopped at a bakery still open late, picked up a bag of almond croissants, and greeted the old man who ran the counter. Back from saving the world? He teased. She laughed. Just teaching the next generation how not to let it fall apart. He handed her the bag and added a cinnamon roll on the house. For the teacher, he said. She walked out smiling, warm despite the cold. In that moment, she realized something. Her peace wasn't born out of forgetting what happened. It was built from remembering who she was before it did. And never letting anyone, not even someone she once loved, erase that again. The next morning, Roman woke before sunrise. He brewed a black coffee. No sweetener, no noise, just the early stillness and a chair near the window. Outside, the world was muted. Pale light crept across the tree line beyond his porch. It reminded him of Boston mornings, back when he and Elena shared one. Bedroom, one income, and one dream that hadn't been complicated yet. The air back then smelled like ambition. Now it smelled like reflection. Roman didn't miss the past. He missed the man she used to believe he was becoming. And most of all, he missed believing in that version of himself too. He stepped outside and opened his tablet. On the screen, an internal report from Veil Systems, his former company. The summary read, "Company morale steady. Leadership transition stable. New hires aligned with ethical transparency goals. Veil Systems Tech Fellowship in Phase 2 expansion." Roman scrolled further. There, in bold, was a line he hadn't expected to read. The Women in Digital Ethics cohort launched in partnership with Rise Tide Foundation. He clicked the link. Rise Tide, Lena's non-profit. He leaned back. No bitterness, no surprise. Just a quiet acknowledgement. They didn't need his name anymore. And that was how it should be. Back in the city, Elena sat in her shared office with Amelia, reviewing partnership goals. Their foundation was growing, not too fast, but steadily. Donations now arrived without solicitation. Volunteers reached out after hearing from someone they'd helped. And companies that once ignored their proposals were now asking to collaborate, not because of her past, but because of her present work. She didn't smile at those requests. She scrutinized them. Because trust, once lost, shouldn't be given freely just because someone finally sees your value. It should be earned, consistently, over time. That afternoon, she received a forwarded message from a third-party administrator. The subject line read, "Unrestricted gift confirmation, $450,000. The donation was marked anonymous. No contact information, no conditions." She read the note in the attached form. For the cohort who walk quietly with strength. For the peace they don't ask permission to keep. No signature, no initials. She stared at it, not to analyze it, not to guess, just to receive it, without question. She closed the email and turned off her monitor. Some things didn't need to be unpacked. They just needed to be respected. Later that week, Roman sat across from his therapist. They had stopped focusing on crisis management. Now they talked about meaning, about patterns, about how men like Roman learn to delay intimacy, to preserve control, and how eventually they lose the very thing they were afraid to let come close. Roman said, "I never yelled at her, never insulted her. I thought that was being good." His therapist leaned forward. "Kindness isn't the absence of harm," he said. "It's the presence of care. Were you kind to her? Roman's answer was slow. "No," he said. "I was careful, with my image, not with her." In a mentorship group later that month, Elena gave a talk called "Boundaries Are Not Barriers." One student asked, "How do you make peace with being misunderstood?" Elena answered, "You don't owe the truth to people who only want to use it against you. Some people don't want resolution, they want control. That's not your work to carry." The student nodded. Another asked, "Did you ever forgive him?" Elena looked thoughtful. "Forgiveness isn't something I do for them," she said. "It's how I let myself grow again, without dragging the weight of what they didn't fix." Roman began writing again, not for publishing, just for himself. One of his entries read, "It wasn't the betrayal that cost me the most. It was the quiet she learned to live in without me. That's what I'll never return from." Months passed. No messages exchanged. No accidents. No grand reconciliations. Just movement. In separate directions. Parallel lives, once entangled, now peaceful apart. Elena sat on a park bench one autumn afternoon, watching two kids race leaves down a stream. The wind carried laughter. Crisp air. Cinnamon from the nearby vendor. She closed her eyes. Listened. Smiled. Not because she had won anything, but because she had walked away with everything that couldn't be bought. Dignity, clarity, and quiet that didn't feel like punishment. That's what healing sounds like. Not applause, not vindication, just calm. The kind you don't owe anyone an explanation for, and never again ask permission to keep. It was the first cold snap of the season. The kind of morning where frost kissed the window edges and coffee tasted sharper than usual. Elena stepped into her office at the community center, wrapped in her thickest cardigan and gloves she still hadn't replaced after 5 winters. The center smelled like books, printer ink, and heat coming through old vents. Comfort. Her team was already there. Amelia, Jordan, and Tay, each in their lane, each with a reason for being there beyond a paycheck. They were preparing for a new session with 30 incoming girls, most from underserved neighborhoods. Their goal was simple: make tech accessible without making anyone feel small for not knowing. As she reviewed the new mentorship pairings, her phone buzzed with a soft notification. She glanced at the screen. It was a name she hadn't seen in months, Shay. No message, just a connection request on a professional platform. Elena stared at it for a moment. She didn't feel anger or curiosity, just a flicker of clarity. Not everything needed a response. She pressed ignore and kept working. Elsewhere, Roman arrived late to a closed-door panel, not as a guest speaker, not as a founder, but as a quiet contributor in a room full of ethics experts discussing algorithmic bias and the long-term effects of design decisions made in boardrooms with no diversity. He said little, listened a lot, and when he did speak, it wasn't from a place of dominance. It was from the floor, with questions, not answers. Afterward, one of the panelists approached him. "I remember when you used to be the guy everyone quoted." Roman offered a faint smile. "That's how you know I'm learning." The panelist smiled back. "Keep doing that." On her way home that night, Elena stopped at the corner florist. The woman behind the counter remembered her. "You always buy eucalyptus." Elena nodded. "It reminds me to breathe." The florist tilted her head. "New place?" "No," Elena replied. "New life." They both smiled. She paid in cash, took the bouquet, and walked into the night, calm, centered, and weightless. Roman drove upstate the next day to visit his daughter. 3 now, sharp like her mother, curious like him. She sat beside him at a small play table, drawing shapes that barely resembled animals, telling stories with each scribble. "This one's a bear," she said proudly. He nodded. "She looks strong." The little girl grinned. "She's alone, but not sad." Roman looked at her. "Why not sad?" "Because she found berries." He chuckled. Kids always saw more clearly than adults gave them credit for. Shay stepped into the room a moment later, tying her hair into a knot. "She's doing well," she said. "I can see that." Roman handed his daughter a sip of juice. Shay sat across from him. "I saw Elena speak at an event. she said after a pause. Roman looked up. Shay continued. She didn't mention you. She never would, Roman said. She doesn't speak from bitterness. Shay nodded. You were lucky. He met her eyes. Still am, even if it's from a distance. She didn't press further, didn't offer comfort. They understood each other now, not through affection, but mutual acceptance of a past that had run its course. Elena spent that same afternoon helping one of her mentees prepare for a university scholarship interview. The girl, Lauren, was brilliant, but nervous. What if they think I'm not enough? She whispered. Elena looked her in the eye. Then they're not the place for you. Lauren blinked. But it's Yale, and you're not auditioning for value, Elena replied. You're offering partnership. Don't lower yourself just to fit in. Lauren exhaled. I wish I had your calm. Elena smiled. It's not calm, it's experience. One day you'll have your version of it too. That evening, Roman walked the property behind his new home. No fence, no cameras, no noise but the wind. He'd planted a small vegetable garden that spring. It wasn't much, just tomatoes, mint and peppers. But he watered it himself. He'd never understood that kind of care before. Everything he once touched was about scale, growth, metrics. Now, he cared about small things done well, not to impress, to nourish. He entered the house, past his bookshelf, and paused by the leather-bound journal where he stored one sentence a day. Today he wrote, I used to think protecting her meant shielding her from the world. She didn't need protection. She needed presence. He closed the book. No flourish, no underline, just fact. In the city, Elena sat with a book of essays in her lap. The wind blew gently through the cracked window. She read one line aloud. Healing is not a destination. It's the daily decision not to reopen the wound for someone else's comfort. She nodded, marked the page, and kept going. The city lights glimmered beyond the river that night as Elena walked home. Her arms full of donated textbooks and her mind full of plans for the coming semester. She took the longer route through the park, the one with benches shaped like half, moons and trees that held onto their golden leaves a little longer than the others. She didn't hurry. Time had stopped chasing her. She passed two young women on a bench, one wiping tears and the other holding her hand. The scene paused her steps. She remembered what it felt like to be held together by someone who didn't know how to handle what broke her, and how much it meant when someone finally did, even if that someone was herself. At home, she unpacked the textbooks, filed her notes, and checked her mailbox. A single brown envelope rested there. No return label, just her name. Inside, a photo, an old one. She and Roman, before the board seats, before the investors, before the fracture. They stood side by side in a tiny kitchen, arms dusted with flour, laughing so hard they both had tears in their eyes. She stared at it for a long time, not with longing, but with recognition. She flipped it over. On the back, in Roman's handwriting, we were real. That part mattered. Thank you for that season. That was all. No request, no reply address, no false hope. She placed the photo in her drawer, not to remember the man, but to honor the woman she was when she loved him. Roman didn't wait for a response. He'd written the note for himself. To give credit to the truth, they had loved each other, deeply, briefly, and the tragedy wasn't the ending. It was that he hadn't protected the part of him she believed in most. The next day, Roman joined a panel discussion at a university's ethics and systems conference. He wasn't the headliner. He wasn't even listed as a key speaker. He sat quietly as others debated automation and power structures. When he did speak, he offered this: most companies are built around scale. But what if the metric was legacy instead of leverage? What if the question wasn't, how much can we grow? But what will this choice cost the people we don't see yet? The room went quiet. Not because it was profound, but because it was lived. Back in her classroom, Elena wrote a quote on the whiteboard. Control is not the absence of harm, it's the ability to decide who absorbs it. She turned to her students. Don't build systems that expect people to be silent to survive them, especially not the ones you claim to protect. A girl in the back whispered, "That just hit." Elena smiled, then let it sit. Later that evening, her friend Celine dropped by with takeout. They sat cross-legged on the floor with spring rolls and steamed dumplings between them. Celine asked, "You seem lighter." Elena nodded. "I am. You waiting on something from him?" "No." "Even secretly?" "No," she repeated. "I'm not stuck in the what if. I'm standing in the what is." Celine laughed. "Girl, write a book." "I'm writing a life," Elena said. "That's enough." Roman spent his weekend cleaning the storage room. He found a box labeled Boston Apt and opened it. Inside, mismatched mugs, hand-labeled VHS tapes, a sweater she used to wear when they stayed up late building mock-ups. He didn't cry, didn't sigh. He folded the items neatly, kept one mug, donated the rest. Not as erasure, but as release. Somewhere in the city, a coffee shop owner unpacked that box later that week and lined the mugs on a mismatched display. One had a faded heart and a chipped edge. A customer picked it up and smiled. "This one looks like it's been through it." The barista nodded. "But it's still whole. Perfect," the woman said. "That's my vibe." And just like that, the past found new hands to hold it. Because not all endings are loud. Some settle softly into places you never thought you'd feel safe again. And stay, not as regret, but as reminders that the version of you who once accepted less was still worthy. She just didn't know it yet. And now, she does. Elena arrived early to the annual Women in Digital Integrity conference. She wasn't speaking this year, by choice. She wanted to sit, to listen, to learn. 3 years ago, she had given the keynote. Standing ovation. Industry blogs called her speech quietly revolutionary. But this time, she was here in a different spirit. Not to prove anything, not to reclaim anything. Just to witness the growth she had once only dreamed about. The ballroom was full of faces she didn't know. Younger professionals, community builders, teachers, engineers. Few knew her story. Even fewer brought it up. And that was how she knew she'd done the work. When people see you for what you do now, not what you survived. A young organizer approached her during intermission. "Miss Vale." "I go by Elena," she said kindly. The organizer blushed. "Right, sorry. I just wanted to thank you. Your work is part of the reason this conference exists." Elena smiled, touched but measured. "I'm just one stone in a much bigger path." The woman looked grateful. "Still, I read your 2018 paper on data dignity. It made me feel like I belonged in this space." Elena placed a hand over her heart. "Then I did something right." And just like that, the conversation moved on. No photos, no spotlight, only substance. Miles away, Roman was finalizing a report for a think tank panel on accountability in executive leadership. His section was titled, "The Price of Narrative Control." He didn't refer to Elena directly, but every line came from what he'd learned from failing her. He wrote, "When leaders prioritize optics over intimacy, the people closest to them bear the weight of their silence. Not all betrayals are loud. Some happen quietly, over years of absence disguised as discipline." He submitted the draft and logged off, then stood by the window of his small study, sipping coffee he now brewed without bitterness. He still didn't date, not because he didn't want love, but because he respected it too much now to offer it halfway. At the conference, Elena attended a breakout session on digital access in correctional education. The speaker was brilliant, a formerly incarcerated woman turned policy researcher. She spoke without apology, without code switching. "I don't need to sound like you to be worthy of this mic," she said. "I just need to tell the truth." Elena's chest tightened, not from pain, from resonance. She didn't speak up, didn't dominate the Q&A. She took notes, because the best leaders learn twice as much as they speak. Back at home, Roman spent the evening reviewing his daughter's drawings. He had framed 2 on his office wall, not because they were perfect, but because they reminded him that life didn't have to be flawless to be meaningful. One was a crooked sun with the caption, "My dad smiles now." The other, a garden with a stick figure and a sign that read, "We grow." She had drawn it after spending a weekend planting carrots with him. He hadn't known she noticed the sign he stuck in the soil. But she did. Kids always notice more than we think. That night, Roman wrote in his journal, "She doesn't know this, but Elena's voice still teaches me. Not through noise, not through bitterness, but because I hear it now in the places I used to silence." He closed the book and slept better than he had all week. At the close of the conference, Elena stood outside the venue beneath a soft grey sky. Amelia joined her, carrying a folder of new partnership proposals. "Big offers coming in," Amelia said. "Corporate ones." Elena glanced at the folder. "Let's vet them slowly." "You don't seem surprised." "I'm not," Elena replied. "We didn't grow this by accident, and we're not giving it away for decoration." Amelia grinned. That's the quote of the day. They laughed, two women who had survived systems built to overlook them, now defining the blueprint, brick by brick, line by line, truthfully, quietly, on their own terms. Roman had once believed success came from scale, more reach, more headlines, bigger rooms. But now, walking into a small middle school auditorium as a guest mentor for a community leadership program, he realized something deeper. Impact wasn't in scale, it was in proximity. The closer you stood to what mattered, the more you felt it shift you. He was there to talk about integrity. He wore no tie, no security, just jeans and a grey wool coat, sleeves rolled up. When the sixth grader asked, "Did you ever lie to someone important?" he didn't deflect. He nodded. "I did, and I paid for it, with distance, with regret. But I also learned that if you can admit your mistakes, you get to rebuild, slowly, and better." No applause followed, only listening. That was enough. Across town, Elena stopped by her parents' house. Her mother was pruning basil on the porch, her father carving wood in the garage. They greeted her like no time had passed. She stayed for lunch, roasted tomatoes, chickpeas, warm bread. They didn't ask about Roman, didn't mention her business milestones. They asked if she was sleeping well, if she still danced to records in the kitchen when no one was watching, if she missed her son's old laugh. Because what mattered wasn't the scale of her recovery, but the softness of it. Later that night, Roman checked his phone for a text that didn't come. He didn't expect it, but he still hoped for it. A message, a check-in, a sign of thaw. Instead, he found a forwarded link from his assistant. "One of your quotes made it into Forbes." Page 3, he opened it. There it was. Narratives can be bought, reputations can be shaped, but peace, that's earned in silence. R.S. Damaris. He closed the article, then deleted the notification, because the win didn't feel like much without the person who helped him write that truth by leaving. In her home, Elena curled up with a book of essays on public silence and private courage. She wasn't lonely. She was peaceful. There's a difference. Loneliness is absence without consent. Peace is presence with choice. She paused when a specific line from the book struck her. Sometimes the quietest woman at the table holds the most unshakable position, because she's learned that power doesn't need an audience, just direction. She closed the book, looked out her window, and whispered, "Amen." The next week, Roman received a simple invitation. No grand return, no dinner, just an envelope in the mail. Inside, a children's drawing of two hands holding a plant. Below it, in purple crayon, "Visit." He stared at it for minutes. He didn't text, didn't call. He showed up. 2 days later, he arrived at the community garden at 4 p.m. Elena stood near the compost bins, in a fleece jacket and jeans, no makeup, her hair tied back. They didn't rush the greeting, didn't rehearse the apologies. He knelt to help her replant carrots, and for an hour, they worked quietly, side by side, hands in soil, not fixing the past, but nurturing something else. A new beginning? Maybe, maybe not, but definitely a better ending. When it began to drizzle, she offered him tea in ferns. He took it, sipped, and said, "You always made it better." She looked at him, eyes steady. "And you finally learned how not to ruin it. No laugh, no jab, just fact." He nodded. Because sometimes, love isn't what returns. It's what doesn't rot the second time it arrives. As they left, Elena waved goodbye with no promises. He left with no assumptions, and the rain kept falling, soft, cleansing, slow, like grace. 3 weeks later, Roman walked into a quiet museum in upstate New York. Not for press, not for donors, not even for a gala. He walked in because the museum was hosting an exhibit titled "Mothers Who Stayed, Fathers Who Returned." The curator had emailed him, said his story, loosely told through media, inspired one of the installations. He didn't know what to expect, but as he stood in the middle of a glass atrium, he found it, a large canvas of a child's coat hanging over a garden fence. Below it, stitched in thread, were the words, "Sometimes the man comes back not to reclaim, but to learn why she never asked him to." Roman stood still for a long time. Then he walked out. No photos, no calls, no statements, just silence. In another part of town, Elena was preparing to speak at a community panel on economic restoration after betrayal, financial or emotional. She wasn't a polished speaker, never had been, but her voice was clear, measured, warm. One attendee asked, "What was the turning point?" She smiled softly. "When I stopped hoping for his apology and started rebuilding without needing one." They clapped, but her eyes drifted to a chair in the back. He was there, no suit, no entourage, just presence. She didn't flinch, didn't break rhythm, and that was power. Later, backstage, Roman waited with a paper cup of lukewarm coffee. When she joined him, there was no awkwardness, no tension, just two people who had survived their former selves. "You were good," he said. "You listened better," she replied. They smiled, but they didn't hug. Time was still teaching them respect, one layer at a time. That weekend, Roman asked if he could see Gabriel again. Not at a mansion, not at a boardroom event, not to impress, just a park visit. With juice boxes and soccer balls, Elena agreed. She didn't supervise, she watched, from a bench, quiet. Observing. And as Gabriel laughed, really laughed, Roman didn't cry. But he did sit down in the grass beside his son and say, "I missed all of this." Gabriel nodded. "Then don't miss it again. No child should carry wisdom that heavy. But some do. And some fathers finally listen." When they returned to Elena, she handed Roman a folder. Inside, a schedule. Holidays, doctor checkups, school art days. She didn't say, "Now you're allowed." She said, "Now you're accountable. There's a difference. Permission is charity. Accountability is earned." He took the folder with both hands and understood the weight. For once, he didn't call his lawyer. He called his calendar. Back home, Elena lit a candle near her reading chair. Not for mood, for memory. She sat with her journal and wrote. Today, he listened more than he talked. Gabriel smiled without hesitation, and I slept without rehearsing comebacks. That is progress. Some nights don't need noise. They just need peace. And for the first time in years, the quiet in her house didn't feel like absence. It felt like rest. A month later, a school art night brought Roman, Elena and Gabriel into the same space again. But this time, Roman didn't sit in the shadows. He painted beside his son. Each brushstroke looked uneven, hesitant, childlike. But Gabriel giggled. "You're not good at it, Dad." Roman laughed. "Nope, but I'm trying." And sometimes, that's what kids need to see. Not perfection, effort. Elena watched them and remembered how it used to be. Roman walking ahead of them, always on calls, always distracted. But now he was present. Sometimes presence is the apology. She didn't interrupt, didn't praise. She just sat with a slice of peace she hadn't tasted in years. It didn't erase the past, but it softened it. That night, as she buckled Gabriel into the car seat, Roman leaned down and said, "You're an amazing mother." Elena didn't look up. "You're learning to be a father." He nodded. "Not everything needs applause. Some truths just need to land." Roman drove home alone, windows down, wind loud. He thought of the day he bought the penthouse, thought of the night he had the affair, thought of every boardroom where he negotiated harder than he ever did for his family. And he realized legacy isn't about assets, it's about accountability. The money was never the gift, the time was. The next week, Elena hosted a brunch for mothers in transition. Women who had left toxic marriages, women who were rebuilding, women who were tired. Each one brought a dish. Each one shared a truth. One woman said, "I thought being silent was classy." Another whispered, "I thought anger was ugly." Elena smiled and said, "Grace doesn't mean silence, it means choosing peace after naming your pain." Heads nodded. Tears fell. No one judged. They held space, and in that circle, healing looked like messy truths on clean plates. Gabriel ran into the kitchen with a crayon drawing. It showed him between two figures, one labeled Mom, one labeled Dad, both smiling. No mansion, no yachts, just a park, and a dog he'd been begging for. Roman showed up 2 days later, with the dog. Elena raised an eyebrow. Bribes now. He shrugged. Bonding. She chuckled. She didn't stop him. Not every olive branch needs approval. Some just need consistency. Later that month, Roman attended a fatherhood seminar. No cameras, no branding. He sat beside mechanics, barbers, college students. And when asked what fatherhood meant to him now, he said, "Showing up for the moments I once outsourced." Silence followed, but a few heads nodded, and that was enough. By summer, Roman had moved into a modest apartment nearby, not to guilt Elena, not to hover, but to be closer to Gabriel's school, to be reachable, to be real. He made lunches, forgot backpacks, took photos badly, relearned bedtime songs. He was no longer impressive. He was involved. Elena's heart didn't leap. It didn't melt, but it softened. Sometimes, healing isn't falling back in love. It's watching the person who broke you grow into someone you would have respected all along. That growth isn't owed to you, but when you witness it, it matters. One afternoon, Gabriel got a scraped knee at school. Roman got the call, showed up in 10 minutes. He held the boy, cleaned the cut, then texted Elena, handled. "He's okay," she replied. "Thanks, good job." Roman stared at the words. Simple, not romantic, but affirming. He didn't want her back. He wanted her peace with who he'd become. And slowly, he was earning it. Fall came early. Leaves crisped, mornings chilled, and school photos arrived. Gabriel's picture was crooked, his hair slightly wild, his smile wide. Elena placed it on the fridge beside the drawing he'd done last spring, the one where Roman stood with them at the park. She didn't remove it. She didn't frame it either. It just stayed, neutral, undecided, like her heart. At the library fundraiser, Roman was invited to speak, not as a donor, but as a father who sponsored after-school reading programs. His voice didn't boom. His suit wasn't designer. He brought Gabriel with him, who sat cross-legged on stage eating raisins from a plastic bag. Roman said, "My son changed how I see value. Time is expensive, but so is absence." The crowd clapped softly, but Elena stood at the back, holding her coat, and felt something else. Understanding. Not admiration, not longing, but recognition. She nodded once and left before dessert. That same week, she received a letter from the estate lawyer. Roman had quietly signed over a portion of his business shares to Gabriel in trust until his 21st birthday. No fanfare, no announcement. She didn't call to thank him. Instead, she sent him a photo of Gabriel asleep with the caption, "Your legacy sleeps early." Roman replied, "He's the only reason I rest at all now." She smiled. softly, alone. One morning, Gabriel asked, "Why don't you and Daddy live together?" Elena paused mid-toast. "Because sometimes people work better when they're not in the same house. Like teammates." "Exactly." Gabriel thought about it. "But you still cheer for each other?" That stopped her. "Yes, baby. We do." Roman never begged. That made a difference. He never asked for her back, never tried to rewrite the past with big gestures. He changed quietly. He became consistent. He became safe. That safety meant more than roses or apologies. Later that month, Gabriel had a fever. Elena stayed up through the night. Roman arrived at 2 a.m. with soup and medicine. He didn't ring the bell. He let himself in with the spare key she never took back, held the boy, sat with them, said nothing. At dawn, Elena finally closed her eyes on the couch. Roman covered her with a blanket and watched her breathe evenly for the first time in weeks. When she woke up, he was gone, but the blanket stayed. So did the soup. Healing looks like that. No explanations, just presence. They didn't label their relationship, didn't restart, but Roman began walking with her and Gabriel to the school gate 3 times a week. He didn't hold her hand, but he carried Gabriel's backpack. One afternoon she said, "You've changed." Roman looked at her. "Or maybe I'm just visible now." She didn't deny it, and he didn't demand more. They stood outside a coffee shop, warm drinks in hand, autumn leaves falling. And for the first time, she invited him to sit. No labels, just now. And sometimes, now is enough. Thanksgiving was quieter than usual. Elena kept it simple. Roasted chicken, mashed potatoes, and Gabriel's favorite, baked macaroni with extra cheese. There was no grand setup, no crowd, no noise. But Roman was there, not as a husband, not as a guest, as family. He showed up with a pie he didn't bake. Gabriel teased him for buying it. Roman grinned and said, "One day, I'll surprise you both with a real one. Burnt, but made by me." The table felt whole, not because the past was fixed, but because nobody pretended anymore. After dinner, they played cards. Gabriel kept score with crayon on the back of a cereal box. When Elena went to wash the dishes, she overheard Roman telling Gabriel, "Your mom's the bravest person I know." Not the kindest, not the prettiest, the bravest. That mattered, because Roman had always used charm like currency. Compliments were once cheap. Now, every word had weight. That night, after Gabriel went to bed, Elena sat across from Roman in the living room. Candlelight flickered near the window. Her fingers rested on a mug of tea, but she didn't sip. She said, "I stopped expecting anything from you." Roman nodded slowly. "I know. I stopped waiting. I know that too." He didn't flinch. She looked at him, steady. "Then why are you still here?" Roman exhaled through his nose. "Because I don't expect anything back either. I'm here because I want to be. That's all." Silence stretched between them. Then she whispered, "That's different." He met her eyes. "So am I." The snow came early in December. Gabriel built a lopsided snowman in the yard. Roman helped him press chocolate chips into its face. Elena watched from the porch, wrapped in her old coat, the one Roman had once hated for being too ordinary. She wore it proudly now, and he didn't say a word. One night, Roman brought a wrapped gift. No tag, no ribbon, just brown paper and string. "For you," he said. Inside was a small frame, a sketch of Gabriel sleeping between 2 pillows, drawn in pencil, the lines soft but precise. "Did you draw this?" she asked. Roman nodded. "I took classes, wanted to do something that reminded me how to see again." She blinked, hard, because once he saw everything except her. December 22nd. Gabriel wrote a letter to Santa and at the bottom added, "P.S. Please give my mom a smile. And if possible, maybe my dad back." Elena found the note taped to the fridge. She didn't cry, but she folded it and put it in her drawer, next to old photographs and a hospital bracelet with Gabriel's birth date. Christmas Eve, Roman didn't bring flowers. He brought cinnamon bread. He brought a board game. And he brought peace. They watched a movie on the couch, Gabriel curled between them. When he fell asleep, Roman whispered, "I know I'll never deserve you, but I'll never stop respecting you." Elena turned to him. "I don't need you to deserve me. I needed you to value what you nearly lost." Roman's voice cracked. "I do, every day." She reached out, took his hand, not as a promise, but as permission to stay, to keep growing, to build without pretending nothing broke. Some things don't return to how they were. They become something better, quieter, stronger, earned. Forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. It means choosing peace over bitterness. It means healing slowly, not for the one who hurt you, but for the version of yourself that deserves joy again. Growth is not declared, it's lived. And love, when rebuilt honestly, speaks louder in actions than apologies ever could. If this story touched something in you, we hope it reminded you, dignity doesn't shout. It simply stands. And sometimes, when dignity is met with consistency, something new and beautiful begins. If this story moved you, share the moment that stayed with you most in the comments. What did you learn about self-respect, patience, or second chances? And if you believe stories like this help us grow, heal, and reflect, hit that subscribe button and join the family here at Mr. Charles Stories, where every chapter honors real emotion and lasting values.